What's up, everybody? Welcome into Dodger Heads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today a day early by Jeff Erickson, senior editor of RotoWire, host of RotoWire Fantasy Sports on SiriusXM. Jeff, we got a big 4-game set, so we had to bring you in on Thursday this week.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do this. Massive series. Insert all the playoff preview talk that you want here.
Okay. Well, we got some MVP talk as well, but Dodgers versus Braves, 4-game set. These teams played 3 games in Atlanta earlier in the season. The Braves come into this one 4 games ahead of the Dodgers for the number 1 seed. And both of these teams, by the way, are on fire. The Dodgers have won 24 of 28 in August, which is a ridiculous number. But the Braves have won 17 out of 22. So both of these teams playing at an incredibly high level. And just before we dive into the specifics, I try not to overreact to anything regular season related. This series feels like a big deal, Jeff. Would you say, I mean, I follow the Dodgers most closely. You follow the league most closely. Is this the biggest series of the regular season? You've got Acuña versus Betts. You've got the 2 best teams in the National League going at it late August, early September, 4-game set. It feels like a really big deal.
It does. And if the Dodgers do some damage in this series, they can make a big inroads for home field advantage for the rest of the playoffs, which, hey, that might be a little small kernel. Last year it didn't really matter as much, but you never know. All things being equal, I'd rather be the 1 seed over the 2 seed. Although I will say this, it's a little interesting because I think there'll be some jockeying to face the NL Central winner in the second round of the playoffs as opposed to like the Phillies. I think that's the one thing. You'd rather have the 3 versus 6 winner rather than the 4 versus 5 winner if it is really truly the Phillies.
Yeah, and I mentioned this because to your point, like 1 seed, 2 seed, a bunch of Dodger fans, hey, we were the 1 seed last year. How did that work out for us? I will say when you look at home road splits, the Dodgers are 25 games above 500 at home and 9 games above 500 on the road. So they're a much better home team, one of the best home teams in baseball, obviously. So that's one thing to keep an eye on as far as jockeying for that number 1 seed. Before we get into the matchups, I want to just get your take real quick on the Acuña versus Betts conversation for NL MVP. Betts was 15-1 about a week and a half ago. Then he was the favorite. Now he's back to being second, plus 100, I believe, on DraftKings. When you look at this, Betts is a full win better than him in wins above replacement. Acuña steals a lot of bases. How do you sort of sift through everything as you're trying to weigh which side you might be on?
So Betts gets a bump on all the WAR measurements because he's played a lot of infield, because he's played second base and shortstop with more challenging defensive positions, and he's acquitted himself well there too.
Yeah.
And he saved the Dodgers. I mean, let's face it. He stepped up and played a position where they were weak, where they really needed help at, and stepped in at a key moment. That shouldn't be overlooked. I mean, and that's something that the actual metrics actually had taken into account for too. The thing that's remarkable to me is what a big lead Acuña had and how Betts has reeled him in because Betts has been so amazing, especially when he's got a teammate in Freddie Freeman, who in many years would be a leading candidate for the MVP in his own right there. And that's the thing. I mean, both of these teams, I mean, the Braves are going to have how many 30 home run hitters? 5, 6. I mean, it's crazy. It's not just Acuña, it's not just Betts. That's the thing that's pretty remarkable too.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman currently ahead of Acuña in wins above replacement, according to FanGraphs. So, and again, I mean, I think it's hard, Jeff, because stolen bases is where Acuña is going to hang his hat. And that's not to say he's been incredible across the board. I want to make that clear. But Mookie has been a little bit better in most offensive categories, obviously dramatically better defensively, plus the positional versatility. Stolen bases is the hardest one to just how do you quantify like the value of stolen bases? Because there are base running metrics out there that actually don't love Ronald Acuña because of the number of times he gets caught stealing. Because maybe he's not elite at, going first to third against a weak outfielder, that kind of thing. So I think that'll be the interesting thing nationally is the stolen base number is going to be huge, but there have been a number of rule changes. So how do you value that is going to be a tricky piece.
Absolutely. And, stolen bases in and of themselves aren't that super valuable. If that were the case, we'd see Estuary Ruiz rank up high in the metrics there and all that. And we're not seeing him, by the way. So in fact, he barely plays. It's the Billy Hamilton argument. How valuable are those stolen bases? It's real. Year after year, you see a lot of stolen base leaders not lead the league in runs or not even be anywhere close to the league lead in runs. And that's because it doesn't correlate. It's more important to get to second base like by getting yourself there with the bat,
Yeah.
moving up people along at the same time. So I think the stolen bases are a nice plus, and the fantasy sphere, Acuña's number
Yeah.
one with the bullet, and I always have to kind of like detach myself from that when we're talking about the MVP race.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. All right, let's get into this one. Again, a 4-game set. So we've got a Thursday night game. And tonight is Spencer Strider versus Lance Lynn. Strider, currently the number 2 favorite to win the NL Cy Young behind Blake Snell. He's plus 180 on DraftKings to win that. 3 wins in his last 3 starts, just 1 earned run in his last 21 innings. Did go up against the Dodgers back in May. 6 innings, 4 runs, 2 of them earned, 11 strikeouts. On the other side, you've got Lance Lynn, who's coming off his worst start as a Dodger, 6 innings, 4 hits, 4 runs. But the most concerning part, just 1 strikeout. Lynn has just 4 strikeouts in his last 2 starts for the Dodgers. So when you look at this one, Strider and Lynn, Jeff, give me your breakdown.
Well, Lynn is usually a guy that misses a lot of bats. So unless there's like a big drop in velocity, I'm not really that concerned. I think it's a blip on the radar. Facing the Red Sox in Fenway, I mean, let's face it, that's a tough draw. And I think a team that doesn't strike out a bunch. So, he kind of ran into that. That was kind of a perfect storm. Lance Lynn has been everything the Dodgers have wanted and then some. I mean, it turns out he so far might be the best trade deadline acquisition so far. And no one was saying that after the trade deadline.
No.
People were like, well, we didn't get Ohtani. We didn't get this. We didn't get that. We didn't get Verlander. We didn't get Scherzer. No, Lance Lynn has been great with the Dodgers. He's giving them innings, which is something they desperately needed, and he's done that. That said, he does give up home runs, and the Braves tend to hit a lot of home runs. So this will be an interesting matchup, to say the least.
Yeah, when you look at the lines for tonight, the Dodgers actually underdogs at home. I imagine for that reason, they're going up against the second best pitcher in the National League in Strider. They've got a guy who gives up a bunch of home runs against a team who hits a lot of home runs. Dodgers are plus 124 on the money line tonight. The total is 8.5. I'm going to zag a little bit off of what you were saying for my best bet. I'm actually going to bet a little bit against Lance Lynn. My favorite line as I look through it is under 5.5 strikeouts for Lance Lynn at plus 110. It's for a number of reasons. One is 4 strikeouts the last 2 games scare me. Braves are 5th in baseball in strikeout rate. But also, to your point, if Lynn gets a little home run happy tonight, how many innings is he actually going to be able to eat for the Dodgers bullpen could be an issue. So he's gone over 5.5 a bunch. But if I'm getting plus money, a couple blips in the radar, tough starts against a better team that doesn't strike out a lot like the Braves, I'm gonna dip my toes in the water of Lance Lynn under 5.5 strikeouts. Are there any lines or props that you like, Jeff, when you look at this one?
Well, I think the stolen base prop for Acuna is probably an interesting one because the Dodgers, I mean, they're not especially good at holding runners. They're not especially good at stopping the running game. I would bet on a lot of the stolen base props. I would take a look even maybe Albies runs a little bit too if he gets on base. I think that might be a source there where you find a little bit there. It's funny. As a team, they're not a huge running team. But you've got Harris, you've got Albies, and you've got obviously Acuna. Michael Harris as a stolen base prop might be a more interesting one because you're going to get a better price. Acuna's price is obviously going to be through the roof.
Yeah, I was trying to look at what those props, because to your point, I think sometimes when you get Acuna versus a team like the Dodgers and everything that's going on, he might be more motivated to run. Plus 225 Acuna to get a stolen base tonight. So that's an interesting line there. Albies is plus 650. And Michael Harris is plus 475 to get a stolen base tonight. But to your point, I mean, if Acuna gets on first against the Dodgers, big series, everybody watching, MVP sort of seemingly hanging in the balance, I don't hate that idea right there for Acuna. All right, let's move on to Friday. Jeff, this is my favorite matchup of the entire weekend. It's Max Fried versus Julio Urias. A couple guys that are came into the season probably with higher expectations than maybe what they've actually seen happen and play out in front of them. Fried basically missed all of May, June, and July, has come back. His last 4 starts, 2 or more earned runs in all of them. He's allowed 34 base runners in his last 21 2/3 while striking out less than a batter an inning. On the flip side, Julio Urias, 2.9 ERA in 5 starts in August, less than a batter, base runner an inning, more than a strikeout an inning. It feels like these two guys are headed in different directions. This could be a big one because, again, these are the two guys that at the beginning of the year you kind of pencil in as potential aces. Fried has been better than Julio on the whole, but Julio's been better of late.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And Fried has missed so much time too this year that, well, both of them did miss a significant chunk. But
Yeah.
Fried's only thrown 53 innings all year. Talk about a guy that is not going deep into games.
Yeah.
This is, I think, a sneaky good spot for the Dodgers here
Yeah.
because you get into that Braves bullpen, which has had some reinforcements, but it's not a super strong bullpen. I
Yeah.
think this might be a pretty good spot here for your Dodger bats.
Yeah, and you know how I love some splits. Listen to this. Julio in 10 starts at home, 2.3 ERA, 10 starts on the road, 7.07 ERA.
Yikes.
8 day games, he's got a 6.7 ERA, 12 night games, a 2.82 ERA. So we've got a night game at home, positive trajectory for Julio when that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Saturday's matchup, Bryce Elder for the Braves. Dodgers have not announced who's going to pitch for them. Emmett Sheehan potentially, although he pitched back on the 26th, so I'm not sure the days perfectly line up. Michael Grove, I don't know where he's at in his rehabilitation, could be an option. I know Gavin Stone just recently got sent down, so he would not be able to come back up for this one. Elder, though, another guy who's been a roller coaster. April and May, amazing. June, okay. July, 6 ERA. August, 5 ERA. What do you think about Elder? This is a guy who did go 6 innings with 1 earned run against the Dodgers, but seems to be losing steam as the season has gone on.
Yeah, he's kind of pitching for his spot on the playoff roster right now
Mm,
for the next 2 months, next month and a half, I should say. Um, I I don't think it's a good spot for him at all.
yeah.
I think I'm curious to see what the total is going to be. Obviously we're a couple days out on this one here, and TBD is always not doesn't get a whole lot of respect.
Yeah.
To your point about Stone, they could find it if a guy goes on the IL, they can call him
Sure.
right back up. So they can find ways to work around that there.
Oh, come on, Jeff. The Dodgers would never do something and lie
Never,
about an
never,
injury.
ever. I would never countenance such a thing either. Wouldn't couldn't see it happening there. But I suspect you'll probably see something like that. I just want to say we're not going to see him in this series, but hat tip to Ryan Pepio.
Yeah,
He is looking really good.
really good.
For a guy that took so long to come back, and they reworked him a little bit there, and boy, has it worked out so far. And he gave them innings. He stepped up big. I mean, the Diamondbacks are like, please, let's get out of this rear view mirror here. Let's
Yeah,
not see this again. And that could be a key for the Dodgers. I mean, he might
yeah.
be that guy that you're surprisingly going to count on a little bit in the playoffs.
Yeah, poor Diamondbacks set up their rotation to face the Dodgers, and then all of them get absolutely worked. And then the Braves, on the other hand, here, they're missing Pepio, but they're also missing Kershaw,
Yeah.
who's allowed like 3 earned runs in his last 7 starts or something like that. So the Braves kind of dodging a couple pitchers for the Dodgers that have been performing well. Sunday, though, Charlie Morton versus Bobby Miller. Morton has been on fire. His last 4 starts, 24 innings, 1 earned run, 33 strikeouts, just 12 hits allowed over that stretch. But the flip side is the Dodgers got to him in May, 5 innings, 6 earned
Mhm.
against the Dodgers. Bobby Miller, on the other hand, I don't want to compare him to Elder, but potentially losing steam, 4 earned runs each of his last 2 starts, hasn't had more than 5 strikeouts in a game all month. Kind of an interesting spot for Bobby Miller. He doesn't look like he's wobbling. He doesn't look like he's running out of steam, but when you look at the numbers, it's a couple starts in a row that he's kind of had to grind his way through.
Yeah, and we're gonna see like how deep, how worked over the bullpen gets on Saturday.
Yeah.
If that's a bullpen start, if it's a short
Interesting.
start, then they might ask Miller to get that extra inning, but man, that's not what you really want to ask from him right
Yeah.
now. The good news is after Sunday, they have an off day. So,
Yeah.
they can they can be a little bit more aggressive with their bullpen usage there if need be. And now that the bullpen is not a huge problem for the Dodgers,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll see 5 innings out of Bobby Miller and then the bullpen the rest of the way, maybe even 4 innings. I wouldn't want a Bobby Miller win prop. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't think he goes especially deep into this game.
Yeah. And the Dodgers kind of lined up the rotation. They gave Lynn and Urias both an extra day of rest coming into this one. And so
Right.
I imagine the hope is, can you get 6+ innings from Lynn on Thursday? Can you get 6+ innings from Urias on Friday? And then it kind of sets up your bullpen for the rest of the weekend. With Strider on the mound for the Braves on Thursday, they're probably expecting the same thing, whereas Fried hasn't gotten deep into games. So interesting sort of gamesmanship. And to your point, it's kind of the domino effect of what happens on Thursday could have big implications for Saturday and Sunday type games. Let me get you out of here on this one, Jeff. We've talked a lot on our show over the last week, kind of making predictions for this one. How many games do you see the Dodgers taking out of these 4? They are at home, but here we are on Thursday. They're the underdog in this one. I would imagine they're the favorite in at least 2 of the other 3. But Charlie Morton on Sunday could be a game where they're the underdog again. So it could be split. Thursday and Sunday for the Braves, Friday and Saturday as far as betting favorites. Do you see it playing out that way?
I kind of do. I think I was going to say 2-2 here is what I see. These are both amazing teams. I'm just looking forward to watching it, but if the Dodgers take 3 out of 4, I mean, then all of a sudden we're talking, it's on for the number 1 seed, like we talked about earlier there. So, I mean, there is some decent motivation for that.
Yeah. I had been saying 3 out of 4 all week. And when I look at the matchups, it's a little bit harder because Strider versus Lynn and Morton versus Miller are not 2. Like, it's like the Dodgers needing to win one of those 2 seems tough just because of the quality of pitcher they're going against and how those guys have pitched of late. I like Urias and the Dodgers on Friday a lot. Depending on who pitches Saturday, I probably feel okay just about no matter who pitches on Saturday. So it's really comes down to, can they get either Thursday or Sunday? So we'll see how the Dodgers look tonight. One note, by the way, for those watching, we are moving our live post-game shows that we do on Fridays. We're going to do it tonight for the series opener. So join us after the Dodgers and Braves tonight. But we appreciate you joining us. That is Jeff Erickson, again, senior editor of RotoWire. Jeff, tell people about RotoWire. Tell people about what you guys got going on.
So we cover baseball, football, basketball, hockey. Obviously, it's fantasy football draft season. We got our draft kit, latest rankings, projections, updates, all that stuff. But hey, we got the huge stretch run here. We're waiting to see where all those waived Angels are going to end up. We'll see if any of those land on the Dodgers or any of the other contending teams. So we'll be all over that, and all the roster expansion will be all over that as well. You can check us out for free, rotowire.com/pod. That'll get you a free peek behind the paywall. No credit cards required. And after a couple of days, hopefully you'll want to subscribe.
Yeah, and what Jeff didn't mention is that his Reds seem to be in pole position for a couple of those. None of those guys are going to get to our Dodgers, but Jeff's Reds could be
maybe. We'll see if they aren't so miserly this time. I mean,
by the time this
should
post,
be a Red.
Who do you want of the group as a Reds fan? Who are you hoping you see the ticker come across Reds claim?
Giolito for sure.
Yeah.
I think he's the shiny toy here. And, granted, it's 5 starts, but you just look at that rotation. You know that they could use him. Any pitcher will do. Matt Moore would be great. Ronaldo Lopez would be great. If you look at all the innings pitched by the Reds bullpen, it's ridiculous. So, any pitching reinforcements they can get would be awesome.
Yeah. Dodger fans, don't get your hopes up. They're way too down in the order to have a chance at any of these guys. Although Moore would be perfect. Moore's the lefty reliever they need, but it's not going to happen. So anyways, that's Jeff Erickson. Again, you can find him at Twitter at Jeff_Erickson. My name is Jeff Spiegel. Again, this is Dodger Heads presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Dodgers.